Friday night in the Russian capital. This is RT, broadcasting live from Moscow. Glad you can join us. Russia is to blame for the start of the war in Iraq. This is what MI6 chief John Sawyers reportedly said during the public hearings on the start of the war. Now, for more on this, we're joined by RT's Laura Emmett, live in London. So, Laura, what exactly do they mean by saying Russia is to blame?
Well, Rory, what John Sawyers is referring to here is the fact that he says that Russia opposed sanctions on Iraq in order to protect its own business interests in the country. He's saying that opposing sanctions made a peaceful resolution that much further away and so brought an invasion of Iraq and the ultimate overthrowing of Saddam Hussein by forceful means rather than peaceful ones that much closer. But there is, in fact, in what he says, a slightly more serious allegation, which is that Russia was, in effect, in cahoots with Saddam Hussein's regime at the time. He mentioned in his later statement the oil for food programme, which was in force at the time. So Iraq would provide oil and the rest of the world, the UN, would give food to Iraq. And John Sawyers said that that suited, of course, Saddam Hussein much better than the so-called intelligent sanctions that the UN was talking about introducing on Iraq. And he says that Saddam Hussein's regime put pressure on Russia to veto those sanctions, which it could do as a permanent member of the United Nations, and therefore put pressure on Russia by threatening to cut off all its contracts in the country, and so Russia rolled over and did do that.
But, Laura, I mean, this does look like a bit of finger-pointing, doesn't it?
It does, really. I mean, the Iraq inquiry has come under a lot of criticism since it was first announced. First of all, you'll remember that it wasn't going to be held in public at all, and then public opinion managed to overthrow that, so now parts of it are being held in public. This, of course, is one of them. It's also got no power to prosecute, and a lot of the people in this country would like to see Tony Blair brought to justice for his role in taking Britain to Iraq. And some say that all that's left in this Iraq inquiry is indeed finger-pointing, and this is particularly ironic when you look at some of the documents that were floating around at the time. And one of them is a joint declaration by Russia, France and Germany, and that was made in February 2003, so just a month before the eventual invasion of Iraq. And I'll just read it out to you. Part of it says, "There's still an alternative to war. The use of force can only be considered as a last resort, and Russia, Germany and France are determined to ensure that everything possible is done to disarm Iraq peacefully." So that's quite an extraordinary document to exist at the same time as these allegations are being made, and that, of course, is etched in the public consciousness. You must remember freedom fries in the States. It was around the time of that document. Americans refused to eat French fries anymore because they decided that the French were so opposed to this invasion and American policy on Iraq that they would go against all things French, and French fries was one of them. So they instigated this freedom fries thing, and so I think really the essence of this is that Russia, France and Germany did warn the international community that the invasion of Iraq might go wrong, and now the UN and this, in particular, this Iraq inquiry is really trying to point the finger, look around for every sort of reason that they can find and blame somebody else.
It's very interesting to say the least. Have there been any other revelations during this hearing?
Well, the hearing's been going on for, a month or so now, and we've also heard that Tony Blair was in fact aware at the time of the invasion that Saddam Hussein didn't have any weapons of mass destruction, and also the extraordinary revelation that this scenario where Iraq had weapons of mass destruction that could be deployed in 25 minutes was in fact lost in translation. They weren't talking about weapons of mass destruction at all. They were talking about ordinary field munitions. Let's hear what Tony Blair has to say about that.
And the problem is that I can apologise for the information that turned out to be wrong, but I can't sincerely, at least, apologise for removing Saddam.
So this inquiry is going to go on for at least another month, so we'll just have to wait to see what other sort of extraordinary, really, in the public consciousness revelations come out of this, Rory.
Well, Laura, certainly looking forward to more revelations to forthcome from these hearings, and we'll be turning to you for those breaking stories. Laura in London, thank you very much indeed.